Yeah, so for today, in our plan, we have to talk about media queries. This is how we create responsive web pages. We talk about floating very, very little. Is like an old way to position your like elements on the page. We will talk a bit more about positioning. I'll show you what is normalizers, and we will talk a bit about semantic tags. So we already spoke about semantic tags last time, about just tags last time, but we will talk about semantic tags a bit. And probably the main part of our lesson will take CSS Flexbox, which is the kind of modern way how you build your responsive pages. Because you will see how powerful it is. Okay, so I will be annoying from the very beginning and start from the questions. Let's like if you know the answer, just answer. So the first question is how to select all P elements with direct div parent. So let me just go to CodePen again. We probably we don't need to have a CodePen. We can do something here. So we have div, and we have p tag, and we have one p tag. So the question is about with direct parent, and we have another p tag, and we have another div. Probably not div. Let's say ul, and we have p tag inside. Yeah. How to select only this p tag? Just this one. Does anyone remember?
You mean only the one under the UL?
Just this one specifically. So let's say how to select all p elements inside the div. What kind of like in CSS? How do I want to do that?
You have the div class, and then you have the p class after that.
So not classes, it's just element names, but yes, elements names. Yeah, so you're right. But if I want to select only this one, the direct child, we need to add some symbol that we discussed last time.
Plus? Is it plus?
No. It is angle bracket.
Right.
So just pointing to the direct child. And yeah. Okay. How to select p elements that are placed immediately after div. So that means the first sibling. And you actually were, so this one. And this is where you want to use your plus, because you're selecting the very next one. So this is for plus. How to select element with two classes, list and list main. So imagine that we have p with class list, and we have p tag with class list main. How can I select only this one? And imagine that we have another one like this.
You just type both the classes without a space.
Yeah, without the space, correct. So you don't need to have exactly. You don't want to have a space. You just type in as a one thing. Great. How to select element with class list item that is inside element with class list. So we have class list item. So imagine that we have ul with list. There we have class list item. Yeah. How to select this element? And we have probably something outside. How to select this one?
We could separate the two classes with a space.
So what do I need to type?
Dot list and space dot list item.
Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. Yes. So name 5 pseudo classes. So remember we spoke about pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So pseudo classes represent state of the element. The let's say the way you interact with it. So what you can do this with it with the element. So if you put a cursor on the element, how can you handle it? Any ideas? So we have okay. So we have state like hover. So this is pseudo class. We also have state like focus. I showed it to you last time. We have
Is animation one?
sorry.
Is animation one a transition or something?
No. So transition is just a silence, and pseudo classes is the state of the. So we have hover, focus. We have active.
Inactive visited link.
Sorry?
Visited.
Visited,
Is
yes.
that a pseudo class?
We have visited. And anything else?
Active.
Yep, we have it. I'll said it one about this one. We have like last child or first child or nth child, right? Do you remember any pseudo elements?
Is M are M and rem?
No, pseudo elements. So this is M and rem is responsive are responsive units, but pseudo elements. Remember that you can create a fake element with CSS. I showed it to you before element, so column before, and we have after, and we have a placeholder. Okay, so responsive units, you said already M, rem, anything else?
I can't remember.
Percentage, right? So we have
Yeah.
percentage, we have viewport height, VH, and for example, widths, viewport widths.
Is opacity a responsive unit?
No. Opacity is just transparency, so it's not
Okay.
a unit. Okay, and yeah, the last question is about how to select the cert p tag, and we actually mentioned the pseudo class that we have for it. So how to do this? So I have, let's say in my case, I have the UL with 5 allies, and I want to select this one. So I want to have UL, and then I want to have any ideas?
The greater than symbol and li3. Not sure.
So you can do this symbol, but you can avoid it. You don't need it. But you have nth child, and you can specify which child you want to have. Okay, great that you remember everything. This is awesome. let's move to the this lesson, and I hope that next time you will expect questions, so you will pay attention and try to memorize what we're talking about today. Okay, so media queries. So media queries is the way how we specify, how we create basically some specific rules for specific screen size or other properties. Like let's talk about it in a second. So basically, there is a way to specify specific rules on some specific conditions. So we have what kind of conditions we have? We have condition based on width and height, media type, which might be screen, print, or I think it's read. I've never wrote any CSS for that, but yeah, basically screen and print at least. And orientation, we have tablet. For tablets, we have landscape or the portrait mode. We have two, landscape and portrait. And resolution. Again, I've never seen it in production, but this is how, like a pixel density. You know this thing that you've heard a million times about, like a retina display. This is because the pixel density has 321 pixels, I think, or 327 or something. So it's about pixel density. Okay.
Sorry, when you say media queries, what do you mean exactly? What does a media query do?
Yeah. So in 2 slides, I'll probably will answer to your question.
Okay.
So this one, for media types, we have all, which is default, so you don't you can avoid it. We have print, we have screen, and we have speech. So print is just for printers, so if you want, you can style it. I'll show you an example as well in a second. We have for any screen, and we have for speech, so for screen readers. And actually, this is the answer to your question, because this is how you create specific styles. So imagine that, let me show you here in an example. Here, I have some stylings for my image. The default stylings is height 200 pixels, right? But I want to say that if my screen, the viewport, not screen, but viewport, is bigger than 764 pixels, I want to change it and use different stylings. I don't want to have height 200 pixels, I want to have height 300 pixels. So you're basically creating a specific rule that if my viewport is bigger than that, I want to have some different stylings for this element. So I'm overwriting it based on the screen size. And you can create that kind of breakpoints as much as you want, as many as you want. Because here I've created a third one, which is so okay, like if by default I have height 200 pixels. For bigger than 764, I want to have height 300 pixels. But if my display, my screen size, the viewport size, the window size will be bigger than 1024, I want to have height 500 pixels. And let me actually show you in our examples what does it mean. So we have on min width, right? I probably changed the wrong thing. Media queries, min width, right? So this is correct thing. So min width for this and min width for that. Save. So for now, I'm not reloading the page, so it's not applying stylings. So I have my default stylings, right? Always 200 pixels. But if I refresh my page, so I have 200 pixels, and if I start expanding, see the breakpoint is 764, 764, and hop, it's jumping, and I'm restyling this element, right? And I'm changing the font size for this line. And if I go in further and get to 1024, my image becomes even bigger. So I can create these specific rules for your browser window size, viewport size, right? So it's very easy, because sometimes you want to not just change the height or width or font size at whatever. You might want to hide some section. So on the big screen, you want to have like 3 sections, but on a smaller screen, you want to hide one because it's not very important, and you want to focus your client, your visitor, on very specific things. So it's like not very important content there. Or you might want to have, like, you have 3 kittens in a row, but for small screen you will want to have 1 kitten in a row, and that will take the full width. So you write specific stylings for each screen size. Yeah. So yeah, this is the syntax. So you have @media, then you specify the type, so you can avoid it, because if you want to apply for all, you just skip this part, and you have min widths and basically curlies, and then you just write in your normal CSS inside. So this is how it works. So the most popular media features conditions are min widths, max widths, and orientation. So the difference, again, so for min widths, I already showed you an example, and here it's like a kind of in opposite direction. So by default, the image will have 500 pixels, but I'm saying if my screen will be lower than 1024, I want to have 300 pixels, and if my screen will be less than 768, I want to have 200 pixels, right? So now here in our example, we have our max widths. If I start changing, my image also growing, right? Still the same. So the result is similar. So what is the difference? We call it like mobile first or desktop first. So if you use your min widths, the first example, as a condition, this one, that means that by default you're styling for mobile devices, for small screens. And because your main auditory comes from your audience are just people who use mobile phones, and you don't expect them to use your website from the desktop, because you can open your Google Analytics, you will see that, okay, so my main traffic comes from mobile devices. So you do your mobile first, and you write in the way that you have default for mobile, and then you specifying for bigger screens with media queries. And another approach is just, you might guess, desktop first, which means that default is for desktop because your main traffic comes from there, and then you specify some extra stylings for smaller screens. But again, there is no difference for the output. They are the same, but it's just like a way you structure your code based on your audience. Okay, so we have next thing, orientation is, we have the example as well here. Let me show you. Next height, print. Let me actually show you a few more examples about min height. We can do the same for min height. That means that depends on the screen height, your browser height or viewport height. You can change it. So let me just, your max width, min height. So if you start min height 400 pixels, then we have 600 pixels. So let's try show you the difference. So as you can see, my kitten becomes smaller and smaller because it's based on the height of your window. And the same for max height. It works, the logic is the same. So if you do max height 600 pixels or max height 400 pixels. So again, output is the same. Just becomes smaller or bigger based on the height. And for print, I don't remember, have I showed you Guardian and their print last time?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So yeah, this is the print basically with media queries. You just set the print here, like media print, and then you write some specific stylings for the print. And that will be applicable only for stylings when you click Command P or Control P and try to print it. Yeah, so it just because these specific stylings, the same as Guardian did. And for landscape portrait, so let me show you an example. Again, you can specify the orientation, and so for landscape and for portrait. So we have some, for landscape, I set the width, basically you can see the one shape for my image, but if I rotate it, now the portrait mode, you can see the full image. Yep. And yeah, another one is the last one is a resolution. This is what DPI, which is dot per inch or pixel per inch. This is what I said about like a retina displays. But I can't imitate it here because I can't do that on my screen. So just trust you can do that. I never seen it before in real production, so I can't tell you like in what specific case you might use it. Okay, so the next thing is float. So float is basically you telling your element to float left or to float right. By default, you have none, and inherit, that will inherit this property from the parent. So if you have div and inside you have p, and div has float right, and for your p inside you will set float inherit, that will have float right as well because it will inherit from the parent. So let me show you an example.
Does this mean that the element sticks to one side of its container when the container resizes?
Yeah, exactly. So here I will show you an example how it works. So for my float figure, so my image, I have a container, and let me show my HTML so you'll see what's going on. Float. So here we have my figure and we have image inside. So figure is that blue container because I set color to blue. And you can see that it has height, right? So if I hover, you can see that it has height, my container. So I will try to set float to right for my image. So if I refresh, it goes to the right, but now we have trouble with this one. We have a problem with our text because it jumped to the very top. And that happened because now our figure lost height because of the float. And this is where the normally problems start. because eventually you can do how to fix it. You have like two approaches. First is for your next element, which is p in our case, set clear both, and that will clear from both sides, but you still have the same problem. Figure doesn't have height, so it's like a hacky way to fix it, right? So you still have the problem. But the actually good way of solving it is to set overflow auto for the container, for the actual figure to the container for our image. And that will put our height back. So if I hover, you can see that we have height. But again, this is like an old way of doing positioning, and I'll show you with Flex how to do it in a nice way without all these bugs, weird bugs, and these tricky ways of solving them.
Sorry, can you resize the window with the float option to see how it looks?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's still inside the container,
Uh-huh.
so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Thank you.
Could we also fix this by giving a float to the parent element and then using inherit?
To the figure.
Yeah, or if we give the float element to the figure and inherit the image.
Yeah, yes, I got you now. Okay, so we have like float right, for example, yeah, and this one inherit. Is it what you meant?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have our element here, and we have image there. We also can change this one from not to inherit, but to left. And as you can see, it stays on the same position. This is because the container has just this width of image. So there is no space to float left to right in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is just in this case. If you have more elements inside, it can flow. So if, for example, if I put my P inside, right, and have my inherit, so as you can see now, the whole container flows to the left and to the right, and because image inheriting, it also flows to the right. So it switched the position. Even if the P comes after the image, my image now is after the P because of that inherit. So if I remove my inherit, my image comes first and the text will be here. But if I put, for example, to image float left, I'll have them in one row. And you might think, oh, great, so this is how we want to put in one row text and image. No, we don't do that now, that kind of solutions anymore. So we have much nicer ways of doing that. I'll show you that today. Okay.
So basically, if you set the image to float, then it overlaps the text, I can see, right?
It's not overlapping, it doesn't have any padding. So if I set some padding, oh, is it? No. Give me a second. Padding left, I don't know, 20 pixels. 20 pixels? Yeah, okay. Lorem ipsum. Is it? Let me just check. Maybe you're right. Oh no. So it just put the text like to stick. And you can see that padding now doesn't work, right? So you need to have like, 150 pixels to have some padding, and even more, 250. So it is very painful to guess everything, and now it's not very responsive. So you just changing this one, but it's still like, it's just a bad way of doing that now. And I'll show you how you can do that in a right way. So let me just go here, refresh, remove this one because we don't need it. And yes. So this is just an example with float and how you can solve it. And here's the clear. So we can, this is what I just showed you. And these solutions. So positioning. And positioning is the most tricky one, I think, because it's hard to get what's going on. So by default, all elements have static position. You can change to relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. So relative means that you take the default position of the element where it is, and if you set position relative and left 20 pixels, you will move this element from its default position to 20 pixels to the right side. So let me show you an example. So we have, I will write my CSS here. It will be much easier for us to see in one window. So I have my p tag, right? And it sits here only because it's just a native behavior. It is inside bottom, bottom is inside middle, and middle is inside top. So for this one, I will set, if I set just left 20 pixels, it doesn't work. So if I change the position relative, now it is working, right? And if I increase the number, it is moving from the default position. So this is position relative. Next one is position fixed. So position fixed is based on the viewport. So what I mean is, if you go to our website, for example, we have this panel with socials. And as you can see, even if I'm scrolling, it sticks on one position. This is because it has position position fixed, and that based on the window. So that is why it's here. So this is position fixed. Next thing is position absolute. This is a funny one. The most, probably the trickiest. Here, let's say I want to position this tag absolutely, I don't know, 100 pixels from the top, 50 pixels from the left. So left 50 pixels, top 100 pixels. And I'm changing the position absolute. So now this one has position, wait a sec, this one. Huh? Let me check. I've left some, I feel like I left some stylings there. Oh right, padding. Okay, great. So we have huge padding here. That's odd. Oh right, sorry, got you. So position absolute, and if I set, let's say, position, sorry, not position, the top 0 and left 0, you can't see it because my text is behind my navigation panel. So if I change to opacity 0.23, you can see that my text is there, right? And this is because by default, this is very important, position absolute is based on the closest non-static parent. And this is what I just said, that static is a default property for every single element. So it basically, you have your text here, it will check, I want to position absolute 0, 0, and it will check the parent. Does it have any position rather than any other position than static? No. This one, no. This one, no. This one, no. It will get here and will be positioned absolutely to our body. because this is the top one. There is no other elements on top of it, no other parents. So to fix it, if I want to position my element to my top, I will adjust position relative to my top one, right? So now it's positioned based on the top parent. I can remove this and add to middle. So now it's positioned absolutely to my middle. Or I can position absolutely to my bottom. And now it's positioned to the bottom. And now if I change some values, so like top and left, it's positioned based on this one, on the green one. So this is a tricky part, and the only thing that I found that many students fall on is that they try to, if they want to position any element on the page, they try to use absolute. Absolute is not for that. Absolute is for very specific cases, and probably let me show you the why we want to use the absolute in general. That would be helpful for you. So let me go to positioning, and we have P inside. Let me add some image. And I need some, do we have kitten? Images, we have kitten. Great. We have an image. Let me remove my P tag. So this image doesn't fit, right? And this is a problem. And this image actually portrait oriented. And I want to make it fit inside. And this is because this image is portrait oriented, I want to set width to 100%, right? If it's a landscape oriented, I want to set height to 100% to fit inside. So let me show, if I put this one and set width 100%, now I'm fitting into my box, which is already good, but I still have this image. I want to show only center of this image, the central part of this image. So that is why I will do my position absolute. And here's a problem again. I lost the relation with my element, because now it's position absolute to my parent, and now it just takes the full width of my parent, of the body. So for this one, I'll put position relative. That fixed my widths again. So now we have relationship between bottom and image. And here, I want to set to show the center. So top 50%, left 50%. So I'm positioning, so my image now starting from the very middle. And now I want to move my image half to the left and half of my image to the top. To do that, we have translation, not actual translation, transform. Oh my gosh, sorry. Transform, translate, and here the value should be minus 50% and minus 50%. And now my image is on the very middle of the green sector, right? So it's equally getting outside on top and bottom. And here you might think, like, based on my basic knowledge in math, 50% top and then minus 50% equal 0. So that should be on the same position. But the problem is that here, so we use 50% from the container, from the green box. And here we use 50% of the image itself. That is why we are getting different values, different height and different widths for the transition and for the positioning. And now how to fix it? So now all you need to do is for your bottom, you will just set overflow hidden. and now you have a nice fitted image. In that kind of case, you want to use your position absolute, not just because you want to move your element left. That is why you will use position absolute. This is the case. So this is a nice, like, this way will be supported by all browsers. We have a nicer way of doing that with object fit, but it doesn't. Internet Explorer doesn't support it. So how to do this is just width 100%, height 100%, and now we have squeezed image. But to fix it, we have a nice magic property, which is object fit, and set cover, and we got the same result that we had before, but with a modern way. But again, just to prove that this is not supported by Internet Explorer, we go to can I use, and here you can see that Internet Explorer doesn't support it. All other browsers support, but not Internet Explorer. So be aware of that. Okay, so this is position absolute. And the last thing with positioning is actually position sticky. This is a very smart one. So position sticky means that you will have position relative always until you get to specific position in the page. So let's say for my p tag, I want to have position sticky and top, I don't know, 100 pixels. Let me make my navigation transparent again. Opacity 0.3. So now, if I start scrolling and reaching 100% from the top, my text will get position fixed. And if I'm scrolling, it stays on the same position. And if I go, it's limited by my containers, that's why I start moving. But when I go to back and scroll to from the top to bottom, from the bottom to top, no, from the bottom to top, yeah, it will stick unless it's reached that position, right? So this is how it works. This is a position sticky. It's actually very nice and helpful if you have like a navigation bar, some like floating navigation. So when you start scrolling, it will stick on the top. When you start, if you go back, it will unstick and get to its own original position. Okay. So we just spoke about this, about absolute, about sticky, normalizers. It's just a quick thing. So normalizers is just a bunch of CSS that somebody wrote for you. Why do you want to use them? So by default, different browsers have different default stylings. So some browsers by default have some margin across the whole page. The font size might be different. In Internet Explorer, that you might have default size for font 12 pixels. For Chrome, it might be 14 pixels. So if you write your code just for Chrome and test it, and that will work, and when you open your website on Internet Explorer, it might look very different. And this is because of that it has the different default stylings. That is why somebody just created a CSS, just a list of CSS. Somebody just wrote that, a CSS. So you just add to your project. So what you just do is before your stylings, so I import it, but before your stylings, you just have something like link, paste, done. So now you have the same stylings for every single browser. So you don't need to be worried about cleaning all these tiny things. It's just a normalize. So every time you start your project, just use normalize, and you'll have no problems with this with different browsers. Okay, we have a nice game. We like games. We can play at home. This is more for like just for fun, because the game is about to see which design is wrong, which design is correct. So you have like a bunch of cards, so you can look on them and think which one is better, has better design, and you can compare them. What was the difference? It's just fun. Okay. So semantic tags. So with HTML5, we got semantic tags. What does it mean? So it's basically the same tags as we normally use, but they have extra meaning. So before, you can, for header, you can use div. For navigation, you can, and still you can use div. For section, you can use div. Article, you can use div. Aside, you can use div. For footer, you can use div. But if you use header, the search engine, when it will read your website, it will understand, okay, so this is a header, and it's not very important data for to rank your website, and you always want to get the higher rank and be shown on the first page of Google search results. And again, you put navigation, it understands that this is navigation. You put section, Google will understand all of that. But if you use divs, Google have no clue, and any other search engines have no clue why and what is the content about. Is it relevant or not? Is it a part of some article? And yeah, it's basically ranking you lower, and you will get to the second, third, fifth, hundredths X pages in Google search or any other search. So this is the difference between regular tags and semantic tags. So just memorize. If you have a navigation, just use nav tag. If you have an article section, just use articles tag. And yeah, nothing crazy. Yep. So here we have just a description about these tags. We have details, summary, figure, fig caption. This is for images. Mark is to highlight your text. This is fun one. I never use it in real life, but it might be useful. So mark means that, let me go somewhere where we have text. We have media queries. This one, the media queries. So without any stylings, if I put mark, and wrap some text inside. Oh, do we have it? Oh yeah, mark. It would be nice to spell it correct, right? Mark. Refresh, and it's yellow now. So you can style it, of course, you can change the color, etc. But by default, you can mark and highlight the text. And again, search engine will understand that you try to highlight this text because it's a bit more important or something. Yep. We also have, like, here we have comparison with old implementation and new implementation. So to emphasize element, just again because of you want to show that it's more important. In HTML4 and the old way, we use I, which is italic, so it's like, but now we use EM, and again, if you use I, you will still get the same stylings, default stylings, than when you use EM, but with EM, again, browsers and search engines will understand that this is more important, and you want to emphasize this text. Same with strong and B. Both will make your text bold without stylings, But strong will again highlight that this is like more important content. Also, never use anchors if you have buttons. I mean, if you want to have a button. That means that if you create some internal navigation or you have some buttons and you will do some JavaScript handling, clicks, etc., don't use anchor and don't style them as buttons. Just use buttons. Again, this is more for about semantic. Also, if you have inputs, wrap them into form and not div. Again, your HTML will work in both ways, but if you have an input, that means that this is a form. So use form. Use labels to describe your all inputs. Again, this is for search engines. And field set is just a grouping of the form sections. I showed you last lesson that this kind of boxes with border around, but this is again more for search engines, that the search engine will understand that this is a specific group of inputs and I need to somehow distinct it from the another group. Okay, so flexbox. This is the nice way of doing stylings. And let me actually here. So this is just a nice way of doing stylings. So in flexbox, we kind of categorize or distinct two types of elements. We call one flex container and another flex item. And the difference is because the flex container contains flex items. Again, this is like more, we just call them, there is no kind of difference between elements from the HTML perspective. It's more like a CSS difference. And flexbox treats them in different ways. And because of that, we have stylings for for containers, flex container, and stylings for flex items. To make an element flex container, you just set display flex. This is it. And from that moment, your element is flex container, and for flex containers, you can apply these properties. So we have flex direction, flex wrap, flex flow, justify content, align items, and align content. And we will go through each, and I'll show you all examples. And for flex items, we have order, we have flex grow, we have flex shrink, flex basis, flex, and align self. Yep. So here I have screenshots, but it's better probably if I show you in real examples. So give me a second. I'll open semantic text positioning flex, this one, and here I will close that, open HTML, CSS, great. So here I've set to the class container, I've set display flex. So now every time I'm at class container, it basically sets some default stylings because I want to reuse this block of CSS for many elements. So we have display flex, and now it's flexbox container. And here, what do we have? By default, this is a flex direction default value is row. So if I remove this, all my elements will go in a row. So if I remove, I'll show you actually here. So you know that block elements, they go, they take full widths. So if I remove my flex, they will be in different, each will take the full widths, right? Even if it's smaller than the full widths, it still takes the full widths and goes as a column. But if you change to flex, display flex, now flex direction is row by default. So now your elements go in one row. You can change it to flex direction column, and you basically get the same. you can change flex direction to row reverse. Row. And now it starts from the end and goes like 3 to 1. You can have the same, you might guess that for columns, column reverse. And you have 3 to 1, or just column. You have 1 to 3. So this is flex direction, column and rows. We have flex wrap. So this is actually a thing that you need to remember, because here on my second section, I specify that each element, this one box, should has width 200 pixels. And it doesn't have 200 pixels. It has 96 pixels. And this is because if you, by default, flex container tries to fit all your elements in one row. So if I add more elements, let me show you. It just shrink the existing one, right? So this is a problem. And to fix it, you can just set to this container, you will set flex. So by default, it is no wrap. It doesn't change anything, but you can set flex wrap. So now each element has 200 pixels as I defined, and if it doesn't have enough space, it will just create a new row. So now another thing that you have, you can have wrap reverse, right? And you will start from the end if you need. So the next thing is flex direction, and so we have flex flow, which is combination of flex direction and flex wrap. Just in one command, you can specify both. So you can have like, by default, you have row and wrap, and you can specify like column and wrap, but to make it wrap, you need to have a fixed height. So that will not have enough space on the height, and that will create new columns. For example, if I set height, I don't know, 500 pixels, now it creates, let me probably 800 pixels. It creates columns for me, right? Because it can't fit everything into one column. Okay. So the next step, sorry, yep.
Sorry, how do you define a container as being a flex container and not a normal one?
You just write display flex.
Okay, and this is something that's supported by all browsers?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, so if we go to,
standard, right?
I mean, not like all browsers, but not all versions. Again, good old friend Internet Explorer. So display flex. Yeah, Internet Explorer still a bit struggling. It doesn't support some stuff. It asks about some prefix, Microsoft prefix, but Edge already supporting and all browsers supporting it. So you shouldn't have problem with.
And this is standard HTML.
Yes, a CSS, standard CSS. You don't need to install
CSS.
anything. Just a CSS. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So
I have a question.
yep.
If we're using a flex wrap, is there any way to place the flex item in a particular place?
Yeah. So this is about justify content.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is the main problem, and the one thing that I just said, that you don't need to think too much about float, because we have a much nicer way of doing that. And this is because we have justify content. So for our container, which has property display flex, by default we have property justify content is flex start. So if I don't do anything, it has flex start. So if I turn on or turn off, it's still on the same position. But we can set flex end. We can set flex center. We can set space between. we can set space around or space evenly. So you'll have equal gap on every single side. And again, one line will simplify all your positioning for all your elements, right? So you have just a list of elements, set display flex, and they are in the row. So now if you want to spread them across the whole line, you just space evenly, and this is it. Or maybe center if you need. Or maybe flex end. Depends, maybe that might be a navigation menu and you want to put it on the right side. Very easy, one line of CSS. And you might think, okay, looks great. How to position them vertically? And I'll show you that in a second. So we have two things for vertical positioning: align items and align content. So align items is where you positioning your elements. Let me show you vertically. So if I set, again, by default, it has stretch. So it takes the full width, full height, sorry. But you can have flex start, and it will shrink your elements based on the content and align everything to the very beginning. You can have flex end, and that will align vertically to the end. You can have flex center, and that will position everything to the center. And the baseline is on the top, but will be based on the tallest one. So you have everything on the top, but it takes the tallest one and align all your elements by the center of this tallest one. And we have align content. So it's very similar. So by default it's stretch, but you can have flex start, and that will shrink basically everything to the very beginning. They are very, very similar. And flex end, so it still keeps, it not avoid the spacing, because you have here, if I inspect the element, I have width 100% and height is initial, but it can be 100%. 100 pixels, sorry, width 100 pixels, height 100 pixels. And now if I am doing my, for the content, I can have center, I can have space between, and I can have space around. So I can basically doing the same what I have with justify content, but this is align content, vertical thing. It doesn't modify your boxes. So let me actually check that, because yeah, see that here it just avoid, oh, initial, yeah. So it, if you have initial for this one as well, initial, yeah, it's still based on the content. It's still based on the content. To be honest, because normally, like on daily basis, I use like justify content, align items, and this is it. I've never thought about the specific use case for this one. Let me actually change the widths. Okay, so if you have widths initial, so yeah, it's not actually stretching, it's not actually shrinking my elements, right? So if I change it to center or to flex end, it just moves all together. So it's not actually breaking. So stretch is a default. So start, flex end. So if you have flex start for this one, for align items, it will modify the height, right? And this is flex start for the element, so it doesn't change the height of the element. So now that means that for you need two commands to align your items. And for example, for this one, let me show you the example. So here we have, let's say, center, and I want to put it to this center in a vertical coordinate. So I'm just doing align content center. not like that. Align items, sorry, align items. And I have it in the middle, right? Or I can change to space evenly or space between. It's very easy, just 2 lines of CSS. No crazy floats, position absolutes, fixes, etc. Just 2 lines. And we have specific stylings for flex items. So flex items, that means that you can apply specific stylings for specific element inside the box. So it's not for the whole container, but it just for specific element inside. So we have order, and what it means that, let me just untick. So by default, and I have some order here, beautiful. So the default is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you set the specific order and set to, for example, it doesn't matter 1 or 2 in this case, but let's say 2, it will ignore all of default positioning. So it will take everything to the very beginning and start a new count. So that means that if I set order for this element, it will be the last one. It doesn't mean is it 1, 2, 3, 4 or anything. It will be the last one because I'm not specifying order for first 4. So if I set order to the third one, to my 3 element, order 1, so now I'm specifying 2, not specifying 3. So first 3 comes first, then we have order 1 and order 2. So if you want to shuffle somehow your elements, and you might change like anything like order 3, right? And you can play with orders. Also, we have flex grow, and that means that, for example, you have 5 columns, and you think, okay, so I want to have 100 pixels for each column, but the last one should take the full width, the rest, like, I mean the spare width. So you just put to this one, like flex grow, oh, I actually have it there, flex grow 1. Oh, I'm applying to all of them, sorry. So flex grow 1. So now this one takes the spare space. Or maybe you don't want to apply for the last one, you want to apply for the second one. So you just do flex grow 1, right? And now this one grows. So that is why you use flex grow. And you can apply flex grow to all elements equally, so they will equally grow. And you might have specific stylings for one box, for let's say flex grow 2, and that means that you will take the base and multiply by 2. So now this one is supposed to be twice as big as this one or this one. And we have flex grow 1 and flex grow 4, for example. It should be 4 times big as this one. It like approximate numbers. Yeah, the same math is for shrink. It's basically opposite. So for if you set to flex grow 0.5, you basically shrink into 50%. And the same with flex shrink. So if you have flex shrink, so by default you have equal widths, I think. Sorry, let me just untick all my stylings. Yeah, beautiful. So you have 5 equal sections, but if you set flex shrink 2, it will be divided by, that will be half of other default widths. And here, for example, if you set to 0.5, that means that you dividing by 0.5, which is basically multiplying by 2. So now it grow, right? And this one is twice as big as the smallest one. Yeah. And this is it. So we have flex bases, which is basically you defining the base for this flex grow and flex shrink. So what you're doing is just have this flex base is 200 pixels. So now if you go flex grow 2, oh wait a second, not just for this one. So yeah, you set in the default like widths for the element, and now you should be able to use a shrink, but I don't have any specific selector for this one. Let me just flex shrink to this one. So yeah, that should be half of this one, and it is. So now it's 96 plus 2 and 2 is 100, and the big one has 200 pixels. So you're now shrinking these elements. And if I do, I'm wondering for okay, if I do flex grow, it will just doesn't take the base in count. That's odd. Okay, yeah, so I'm not using this like every day, and you will probably never use this flex bases because I've never seen it before in action, but you will use flex shrink because sometimes, for example, that might be a great example. So you have your flex grow for this one. Let me just remove all this flex grow and leave just for one flex grow. So this one, right? But it's very important for you to have this, the original size, or like specific size, like 400 pixels, even when you're resizing. Because if you start resizing, that will shrink this one, and you don't want to shrink it. So for this one, you might set flex shrink 0. So no matter how much width do you have, this wall will never shrink, right? So sometimes you might need it, especially when you have like flex grow, that might try to shrink all your other elements, and then you need to have your flex shrink 0. Okay, so yeah, flex is basically a combination of flex shrink, flex grow, and base. Just as shortcut. Nothing special.
Could you repeat what flex bases does, please?
Yeah, so flex base is you're setting the default, let me just refresh, the default widths for the element. So it's kind of widths. So see that we have width 100 pixels, but flex base saying that it should have 200 pixels. So now this element has 200 pixels. And if we start resizing, it should be basically twice as big as the others in our case. But it's kind of a width, the base width, default width. But again,
we could circumvent this by using a flex grow, right?
Sorry?
We could circumvent this by using a flex grow. So what's the advantage we get by using a flex basis?
Again, I've never seen it in production, probably because it doesn't have any specific benefit that you can gain from it. Because normally you basically can specify not flex bases but just widths. right? And you have the same result. So yeah, that is why I've never seen it. Let's actually Google, why not? Flag spaces. So what this says, property sets an initial main size for the flex item. It says the size of the content box unless otherwise, yeah. Basically width. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a width.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the align self might be also useful for you because you can align. So we have align items, align content to align all elements inside the container, but you can align specific element with align self. And you can have like center, you can have flex end, flex start, or here we have center again, and we have flex start by default, so it doesn't change anything. Flex start, because this is a default value. And you can basically position them, or like flex end or something, to build some shuffle or something. Flex, give me a sec, this one. What's going on? Align self. Oh, sorry, my bad. So it's yeah, this is actually a good example. Align items doesn't work. Align content doesn't work for flex item. It will work for flex container, but it doesn't work for flex item. And yeah, align self. Yep. Something like that. So this is a Flexbox, and again with Flexbox everything is kind of responsive, and you need to write less CSS to make your website responsive with Flexbox. We will also, in next lessons, we will talk about CSS grid, which is super, like very like smart way of doing responsive design, because it's two-dimensional, and yeah, I'll show you examples as well, and it's kind of magic. CSS grid is great, but yeah, we will talk in other lessons. So yes, this is a Flexbox, and I have again, because we're enjoying to play games, the same as we had for selectors, we have Flexbox Froggies, where you just need to go, you have 24 levels, and you want to basically write your Flexbox to put your the froggy onto the leaf. So you just here, it just justify content flex end. Yeah. And here you want to put, you might guess, justify content center. Yep. And 24 levels. It is fun. It is a great way to learn and practice your Flexbox. Because every single modern website uses Flexbox, for sure. I would say like maybe not every, but like 99 or 98% of modern websites they are using Flexbox. So yeah, it is important part. So I want to show you another like homework. If you're curious and you want to build something, we have a nice website, like a landing page. So we had a very simple one, but now we have a slightly more complicated. Let me load. Yeah, so we have that kind of landing page. We have some navigation, we have some main section, we have two sections, and this is a tricky one because here you have like almost identical sections, and they are identical. If you start creating HTML, you're creating two identical sections, and just for the second, you will use flex direction row reverse, and this is it. And you have in opposite sides. Again, with one line of CSS, you can swap the position and have like a nice layout. And here we have some 3 cards. And here we have a bit more complicated grades of images. So when you hover on the image, you will see the text. And if you remove your mouse, it will be just an image. And we have some footer. It's not very complicated, but I think it will be challenging. I strongly recommend you like to ask questions in Slack if you're doing something, or if you're reading through our slides and you want to like revisit and you don't understand something, feel free to ask any question, because that is why we are there, and we are working with our students from the bootcamp, and we always are, our instructors are, so we are happy to respond and explain you why and how that's supposed to work, and on any of your questions. Yes.
Which channel will we require to post our questions?
Are you in our? So you're supposed to be in our Slack.
Yeah, I'm. Which channel are we supposed to post the questions? Is it in general or static?
Yeah. So basically, you have static front end. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can post in general. I also see there. But yeah, static front end, it's more relevant, and probably other students who participate in the same course, it's relevant questions for them, so they might benefit from these questions as well.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. I think for today we actually were very fast. If you want, we can quickly build some layouts with Flexbox, so I can show you an examples of how we are doing that. That might be helpful. Yeah? Anyone?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Let me just create something. New file, probably new folder. Sample. Here we want to have index CSS, and I want to have index HTML. So here we are starting from our basic structure, and we are adding our CSS. So link and index CSS. So as you remember, I said that you want to use normalize. So you basically can use this link if you don't want to download this file, and you need to put it before your CSS, because you will overwrite with your CSS if you need. Okay, let me put this on the right, and maybe I can show you actual example of the first section of this homework, or maybe this one. Let's use this one. That might be interesting. So here we have some text, some square, and here we have two more things. So like in real life, people just, let me just open, sorry. Where is it? This one. So it's empty page. We have limits. So when we create a website, we set max width for the container. So what it means is if I'm creating like a, I don't know, div with class details, or maybe, I don't know, content, for example, content. And I want to set some limit for this container. So I will set something like dot content, and we have max width. So we set in widths to 90%. So we will have on mobile, we will have like a nice gap left and right. So we have margin top and bottom 0 and auto left and right. That means that we will spread this 10% equally. So we will have left 5% and right 5%. And the max width should be, let's say, 1440 pixels. So even if I have like 5K display, it's like 40 inches, I don't want to turn my head left and right to read the content. I want to see my content in the middle. So I'm setting the limit for the section. And because we don't have height here, I will set some height just for a second to show you an example. We don't need it. We don't do such things, but just for you to show you that VH and background color, just to show the example that it is there. Refresh. This is our container. So if I increase the size, it stays the same, right? The width is the same. It's maybe actually too wide. Maybe we want to have some companies use 1024 as a container. 24. So they will have something like that. That might be more acceptable for people. Yeah. Okay, so we can get rid of our height. We will keep our background color just to show the edges of our container, but we will remove it. So we have another magic, which is an extra tool in your code editor, which we call, it calls Emmet. And it allows you to write shortcuts to create your HTML. And what I mean by that is that if you want to create elements, you can write like UL, and there let's actually create a real one that we need. So we div, let's say class row. There we want to have some div with class. So it's boring. It's just long and boring, like image, etc. But what you can do is have something like, I want to have div with class content, or just row, let's say row. Inside this row, I want to have two blocks. One will be with class image, so I use dot, and there I will have some h2 with some text like HTML, and then I have something like div with class details, and there I have like h3 with some text, let's say title, plus I have a sibling which is just p tag, some text, right? And I want to have two rows, not just one, but I have to have two rows. So multiply 2. So now, here's where the magic happens. Let me just change the width. So now, if I hit tab, I have my HTML with my classes, with text inside, and I have these two rows, right? From this line, with hitting tab, so you might not be able to use tab, but all you need to do is go to preferences, settings. Here in the search tab, you will look for Emmet, scroll to the very bottom and tick this box, trigger expansion on tab, and then you'll be able, by hitting tab in the end of the string to expand it to actual HTML. Right? This is a time saver, huge time saver. Okay, so we already have something, right? So I have 2 rows. Great. So now I want to make them to fit HTML and this section. Let's actually add some colors so we will see them. So for my row, this is like a dumb colors to see where the element ends. So row, background color, aquamarine. For image, we want to have background color, I don't know, some colored blue. And for details, we want to have a background color, not this color, some cornflower blue. Refresh. So we have this section. This is the whole container. We have this section 1 and section 2, right? So as we just discussed, let me just switch my screens. So as we just discussed, the parent for these two, for image and details, is row. So for my row, I want to set display flex to fit them into one row. So if I click refresh my page, now I have them both in one row, right? They align to the very beginning because it's flex start by default, but we will change the width for them. So for my image and for my details, I want to have widths probably 50%, right, for both. But I want to set max widths, let's say 400 pixels. So now we have two 400 pixels and 400 pixels. But still we have gap left on the right. So I want to flex justify content center. Yeah. Or maybe we can use space around or evenly, maybe evenly. So now we have some nice gap between them. The only thing that I forgot, actually this is an interesting concept. Let me show you in the code pen. Sorry, code pen, because I can use it blindly, but I think you'll benefit from that, from the explanation. So we have a div. Div has height 400 pixels and width 400 pixels and background color green. This is our square. So if I set it's 400 by 400, if I add padding, which is internal spacing, 20 pixels for each side, you can see that my square just grew, right? Just grew a bit for 40 pixels horizontally and 40 pixels vertically. To avoid that, so it's not very predictable for you to style your page. To avoid that, for every single project, at the very beginning, you use asterisk to select every single element on your page and put box sizing border box. And now it shrink back to 400 by 400. So now if you set 400, you will have 400 pixels. So that is why I want to put into my stylings on the very top. Box sizing border box. Now it doesn't change anything because we don't have any paddings, but it will change because we will add some paddings. Okay, so I want to set for my row, not for row, for image, I want to change to black or 0, 0, 0, it is black as well. And I want to set height to 500 pixels, 400 pixels to have a square. We don't have any spacing, so you can't see the actual thing. So let me actually add some margin. Bottom 1em, just a space, some space. So you can see that we have a square. And the problem now is that if I start resizing, it's not a square anymore, right? Here's another trick from CSS, which not every developer knows about it. And actually, probably a month ago or something, I showed it to my lead in my team, and he said like, "What? Why?" And yeah, this is like a trick of CSS. So to keep it square, you need to do a few things. So first thing, I will comment out my HTML just to show you that we don't have any content inside. So to do that, for your image, you don't need to specify height. You just need to set padding bottom 50%. So that will use the same 50% as this one. So you don't need this. You will always have a square. And if you start resizing, you have a perfect square all the time. Right? Absolutely responsive. So you might think, okay, how am I supposed to put my text inside? So let me change the color in my image for my text to white so we can see it. Refresh. See that it just grew a bit because of the text. So to fix this, for your image, you're just setting position relative, and here we will use our position absolute. And now we will have our top 50%. This is what I showed you today. Left 50% and transform, translate minus 50%, minus 50%. And now you have it in the middle. And you have your perfect square. You have the margin, so it's slightly lower. So all you need to do is just remove the margin. So margin 0. And if I refresh, now it's in the center. See that even if I'm resizing, it's very responsive. And you might want to change something like the font size to, I don't know, 3em to make it big. Maybe even more, maybe 5em. Right? And maybe, just to show you as an example of media queries, here I will write @media query, and I want to have max width, let's say 768 pixels. I want to have these stylings and have not font size 5 because it will be too big for mobile, but maybe 3. Refresh. So if I start shrinking my screen and get to the point to 768, it just makes smaller my text, right? And for the mobile, we might think that actually we want to have, let me actually show you this example. For mobile, you might think, okay, the row is great, and have like to put them in a row is great idea. But for mobile, I want to have actually a column for each section. So max width 768 pixels. And for my row, I want to have something like flex direction column. And yeah, this is it. So let me go to the big screen, refresh. So we have a row, but if we start resizing and get to the point, now we have a column, but we want to put it into the middle, right? So all we want to do is just set align item center, refresh, and we have it in the middle. And if we remove our dummy colors, the green one here in a row, and probably the antique white, we have these as columns, and if you increase, you'll have them as rows. Not much CSS, but you have a very responsive website. So the next step is I want to add some probably more text. So let's go to some hipster ipsum. Yeah, let's copy just the first section. We need to have this, and we want to have this. Refresh. Yeah. Okay, so we want to add some padding and remove the color. Let me remove the color because we don't need this color anymore. We want to add some padding. We probably don't want to have that on top and bottom, but left and right. So 0 on top and bottom, and like 2 ems left and right. Refresh, and we have it here, right? We might want to add some title size. So let me just, so H3, so in details, we will have H3 and font size 3M. Refresh. Too much. So we have this margin by default again, which we need to remove, and we will. We actually set margin top 0, margin bottom 0.5M, something like that. Yep. And we have this responsive page. And again, for small screen, we don't want to have padding left and right. We want to have padding on the top. So this is what we will do. I will create the same rule, but now for this one, actually for details, right? For details, we will have padding 1M and 0 left and right now. And for the H3, we will have probably font size 2M to make it slightly smaller. Let me just refresh. Yeah, much better. And if I resize, we have it. Oh, right. And this one, now we want to swap sides, right? So for the second row, I will add, so we have HTML and HTML. So here I will change to CSS. I'll call it CSS, add the second class. And here that will be HTML. And for my CSS, I want to add flex direction, row reverse. Yep. Something like that. And see that now I want to fix it for my media queries. And that will be same thing that we have here for the row. Row with class CSS, should be just column. Refresh, and now it is a column. Start resizing. Yep, something like that. Or maybe we want to have a more predictable width for our square. So for our image, we want to use something like 400 pixels. And then that means that we don't need to have padding bottom because it's not responsive anymore. And we want to have something like height 300 pixels. That means that we don't need to care. I'll show you another approach. 300 pixels. Give me a second. 3 by 4. Oh, right. Because, right? Is it? Yeah, 300 pixels. And yeah, another thing, probably 400 pixels is better for now. But the only you can have your text in the middle, but you can approach this in a very different way with CSS with Flexbox. So you can remove this, all this position, absolute left, translate, and etc. So now you can just do display flex, justify content center, align items center, and there is no difference. It still sticks in the middle. So when you resize, you have it here. So you have some padding, right? Why do you have padding? No, we don't. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, we just have weights. Yeah. But you got the point. Do you have any questions?
Do we need to write a media query for each particular class that we're dealing with?
Not really. So you can, of course, you can put everything into one, because we have one media query, right? So I can do something like cut, paste it, and cut this, paste it here, probably cut this. I just want to keep the order and remove all of these media queries. That will work. I'm writing this in that way because I don't need to scroll top to bottom when I start refactoring it. So I already know, okay, so I'm near my row, so I can modify my row and I can modify my row media query. But if you have in this approach, you need to scroll top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, and it's very hard to focus. So
and this can come anywhere, right? The media query?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is why I do in this way, right? So because I'm here I have my row, and here I have my row media query. It's very easy to change stylings. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And yeah, next time we will talk about CSS Grid. And let me just check that to be sure. Yeah. No, next time we will talk about animation, and we'll try to build something as well. So how to do animation with CSS, because you do some animation with JavaScript, but nowadays we have just most part of the main part of the animation is done by CSS. So we'll talk about filters, animation, parallax, etc., stuff like that. And then we will have Saturday's lessons to build something.
Can I ask one question?
Yep.
For a website such as, I don't know, the Imperial website, let's say, how many CSS files do you expect it to have?
I would say, so it very depends, because if you have, if you don't use any, you don't build a huge platform and you have just like 4 pages, you might need just to create 4 files for each page. So you have like main page and you have main CSS, and you have like about and you have about CSS. But for big projects, you often have stylings. You have like reusable, like a theme where you have colors, font sizes, etc. So you create like a very generic file with these kind of settings, and then you include everywhere where you need it. And still you have the main the main structure is that each file represents one page, but you also will have this extra like shared files where you have some extra reusable CSS that you want to reuse in different pages.
Okay, so basically then to a page you could apply some template styling, let's say, from one CSS, and then further tweak the page to personalize it from another CSS.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Have we already learned how to link certain parts of the page with other parts in the page? For instance, if I'm creating a nav bar right now.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not something crazy. Here, the first example on our exercise, our examples actually can find it. So all you need to do is just add anchor link element and point it to another file in your folder. So if you're in lesson 2, I have index, this is index, and I'm pointing to, for example, this anchor pointing to float file, and positioning this anchor pointing to positioning file, and this is it.
I know, I meant within the same page. Is there any way to link it? Like if I click on float, is there any way to link it to someplace later in the same web page where it would just move there?
Scroll. That will scroll to that element. You're saying that to basically to link to specific section on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that. So again, for this you need to use IDs. So if you add ID, I don't know, section, for example, you can use something like hashtag section, and when you click now on this anchor, it will jump to this section.
Okay, thank you. So the animation would be decided. Will be taught later, right?
Sorry, the animation.
Yeah. So we can set how it scrolls. Can we set that parameter?
You need to handle this with JavaScript, like the smooth scroll. Yeah, you need to handle this with JavaScript.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And JavaScript, how does that integrate with HTML? Is that code that you put into the HTML file, or how does it integrate?
Yeah, basically to add JavaScript to your page, you just add script tag, put src, and point the same as you point into any other file. You just point to something like, I don't know, index.js. And you need to create this file in your folder, like index.js.
Okay, and when, for instance, if you have this tag, when is this piece of code getting executed, upon which action?
Yeah, this is a good question actually. So you might notice that I put it on the very end of my file. This is because JavaScript normally interacts with your elements on the page, and if you put JavaScript before your HTML file elements, and that will be executed automatically when you load when you land on your page, and because it's executed first, you still don't have all these elements, so you will fail your JavaScript. That is why we are putting JavaScript in the very end, so your browser will read everything, knows about all of your elements, and then will execute your JavaScript.
Okay, and do you need to put the JavaScript within the body tag or within the HTML, or can you put it outside?
It can be here or it can be here, it doesn't matter.
Can it be outside the HTML tag?
No. because
okay.
this is the end. Basically, your the browser will read your HTML file within HTML tag.
Mm-hmm. And if you want the JavaScript to execute when the user performs a certain action, where would you put this tag?
It's still here. You just have a listeners with JavaScript. When you on initial load, you initialize in JavaScript file. You initialize listeners like on click, on scroll, or on anything, basically. And when somebody click, you already have this listener. So you just trigger this listener.
Okay, I understand. And we're not covering this part in this
No,
course, right?
no. So this course is about HTML and CSS.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for your time, and I see you next Wednesday.
Okay. See you next Wednesday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.